It's John Lund Unleashed. Shout out to Lund loyalists watching on YouTube, those watching on X, Instagram, Facebook, and JohnLundUnleashed.com and the Lund Lunatics, listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe and like John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and keep those alerts on so you don't miss anything. Now here's Johnny.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Happy Hump Day Eve. Happy final non-NFL day for I don't know how long. A long time, because the opener is tomorrow, the Eagles versus what used to be the Cowboys. Then in Brazil, we've got the Chargers and the Chiefs, and then all the college football, then the full slate on Sunday, then Monday Night Football. And it just never stops from there. But there you go. The big story of the day, ESPN ruins Red Zone. And I told you this when I wrote a national column. I'm writing a national column for Barrett Sports Media. And I told you this about a month ago. And so I'll get into that. But good evening before we get into any of that. And I did contemplate for just a second, because I'm so pissed about this, about starting with the NFL Wire, because this is truly the number one story of the day, and I'll tell you why momentarily. But we'll hit up with some 49ers and some Seahawks in week one in the NFL season, as it is Wednesday, which it's kind of a big day in the NFL because that's when teams have to unveil what the injuries are, which is a big deal in the league, because it's not if you're going to get injuries, it's when and to whom that you're going to get the injuries. Now, week one should be better than most, but there's still injuries through camp and guys still coming back from off-season surgeries and the such. So there are still some injuries to get you caught up on. So Wednesday's the day that they have to unveil those things, you know, with fantasy football and bettors and all those kind of things. So we'll talk about that. But there is our friend Scott Hansen, and he used to be the golden bladdered one for 7 straight hours. There was no commercials. That's not going to be the case anymore. What happened there? There I am. There it is. All right, but we will discuss that when we get down to the NFL Wire. There, as you see, NFL or Red Zone ruined, and I told you so, and all that kind of stuff in red. But it is episode 232, and we'll get into all the Niners and Seahawks stuff. Plus, there's people throwing around stuff because it is pre-week one, at least for one more day. And so everyone's trying to get out their opinions and who's going to win what and all these kind of things, and running simulations and blah, 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 and lists and all those kind of things that, we just love so much. So anyway, welcome. There's always a ton to get to in what is the soap opera of the NFL. And it, of course, is week one, and we are one day away from football. The offseason is almost over. This is one of the best days of the year because you know that it's all football from here. So good evening. I'll do roll call in just a second, but make sure, please, and you are watching and you are in the right place for John Lund Unleashed right here on YouTube. Please make sure a few things, if I may. Subscribed, check. Alerts are on, check. And before you get out of here, because there's an algorithm to this whole thing, and YouTube says, is this show any good? And you say, of course it is. And the reason the way that you tell is that you just hit us with a like. It is that simple. That's all I ask for all this massive amounts of entertainment that we give you every single, 6 days a week. All we ask is a like. That's all. So hit us with that before you get out of here tonight as well. And that really helps the algorithm so that the show and the community grows, which we absolutely love. So episode 232, Kyle talks, and there's a few things in particular that I want to discuss. Juwan Jennings' latest is one thing he talks about. This is the last year for Juwan Jennings. I'll tell you why. Wide receivers on Sunday, which 5 are going to be up, and I'll tell you why that's important. Youth on defense, we talk about ad nauseum, but we are here and what to expect from that youth, especially because they missed a lot of time in the preseason. Kyle talks today, too, about the double Kubiaks. There is Clay Kubiak, who is the co-offensive coordinator of the 49ers, will not call plays, but still, and I'll tell you why that's important. And Clint Kubiak, who comes over from the Saints to be the Seahawks offensive coordinator for Ryan Grubb, who absolutely flopped last year in Seattle, could not run the football, the Seahawks. Mike McDonald kind of had that thrust upon him. I'll talk about that. Now he's in his second year and has more of the people he wants around him, which is running the football and playing defense for Seattle, and yet they were still 10-7, which is not bad. Injuries, as I told you about, how that is going to affect this game and who's in and who's out. NFC West predictions, they come in every single day because I told you it's pretty much the speak now, forever hold your peace kind of a thing before the season starts, because a couple of games in, I don't care what you think. You've been able to see the teams now. We want you to say beforehand. We want you to predict, and that's what people are doing. Richard Sherman can't seem to make up his mind. On his podcast where he puts on a Seahawks hat, then he puts on a Niners hat, then he puts on a Seahawks hat, then he puts on a Niners hat. Make up your mind, dude. He had no hat on today, which tells you how he's picking the NFC West. And finally, no need for Kendrick Bourne. He came here yesterday, the former Niners wide receiver and former Pats wide receiver. And then he went to Washington, and he said, or he announced, yeah, I'm not going to make up my mind this week. That is a not so veiled, I didn't get the deal I was wanting or expecting, and therefore I'll wait, and maybe somebody will get hurt, and then next week you'll come up to my number. And I don't think the Niners need him anyway, so I'll explain that. NFL Wire is red zone ruined, and the caboose pistol is hot box and hairlines. Hot box and hairlines. That kind of sounds like, what is that? That's some sort of like Alex Trebek thing, or Saturday Night Live was much, much better. But hot box and hairlines for tonight. Sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol. So a lot of video, a lot of fun, a lot of good stuff. And I always love your comments, questions, and thoughts. If you want to 100% get your thoughts on the show, hit us with a super. That would be amazing. And you're supporting the show. So you get two things done. One throw, two stones, however that goes. That would be outstanding. All right. The people that I'm about to shout out right now are in the chat room. Well, how do you get to the chat room, Lund? Glad you asked. If you're on X right now, and that is great, watching on John Lund Radio, tremendous. That is awesome. I'm glad you're here. If I may be so bold, if you'd go over to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, that would be great. And that's where your chat room is. That's where we grow this community. And that's who I'm shouting out. Maybe you're on the Bay Area Sports Collective. That is dandy on YouTube. Coming over to John Lund Unleashed, and you can participate in all the fun. So good evening to our good friends. JJ Raider is here. You Trippin is here. Joy. It is not a show without Joy. It is not a show without Christopher. 22 is here. Joshua, it's great to see you. The 1420. It is certainly not a show without you. Catalina is here tonight. That is tremendous to see. J49 is here. Lots of people in the room already tonight, and it grows as we go. So again, if I did not shout you out, I guarantee you that at some point I will. And remember, questions, comments, thoughts. Love to get you your thoughts on what we're talking about, on what we're not talking about, whatever the case may be. If you're watching the show later, just hit me right underneath here, and I will hit you back. Or a great place if you're watching on X tonight, at John Lund Radio is a tremendous place to hit me up, because I am there quite often. All right, I will wait on Red Zone Ruined. Let's hit up a little bit on the 49ers before we get to all of that. Kyle Shanahan spoke, and a lot of things come out of his mouth today that were very relevant to Sunday in Seattle. But let's start with Juwan Jennings, as we often do. Now, we're going to start out a little bit about his health. And again, I'm not calling anybody a liar, but I'm calling everybody a liar, because enough on the calf, okay? I don't know how long they're going to keep this ruse up, but I've been telling you for weeks, it's the contract, not the calf. The thing's been going on for a long time. I'm not saying it didn't start in the last OTAs. I'm not saying that maybe he was a little bit gimpy because of the calf, but it's no longer the case. It may hurt a little bit, but the reality is his pride's hurt more than anything else. And I'm going to explain to you something. It's not new, but I'll try it a different way so that people can explain more. But all these people are continually talking about the calf. There is no calf, okay? It was a contract. That's why he wasn't here. And again, for those who are just joining, I'll just explain this one more time. In his contract, which why not pop it up on the screen so that it's very easy for people to see, and you're not just saying, yeah, Lund, whatever. Here's the deal. In black and white, and very simple for you to see. All right, you see there, 2025. See that thing where it says per game roster bonus 2025, $625,000 a week. What does that mean, Lund? It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll say it again. If he's on the roster for that game, he gets $625,000. Had he not reported this week and got on, then the Niners basically said to him, look, man, we're not going to cover you with the calf anymore. You're going to start losing money. We're going to put you on a reserve list. That means you're not on the roster. So you either come back this Monday or you start losing $625,000 per week. So what did he do? He showed up Monday, and all these dumbasses were like, oh my God, he showed up. They must have made some headway. No, they didn't. Actually, He just doesn't want to lose $625,000 a week. And what I told you was weeks ago was that he was going to show up on Monday, because all through training camp, when they went through the ruse of the calf, and at some point it was legit a calf, but after a couple of weeks it wasn't. It was a contract, not a calf. He was not losing any money, and the organization was, look, man, if you want to hold in, that's fine. We're not going to out you, and we're not going to fine you or anything like that. We want to stay on good terms. We need you, especially with Brandon Ayuk out. We need you with all the injuries we've had at the position. We want you week 1 in Seattle. We can read the contract just like you can. We know you're going to come back week 1. Everybody knows it. Keep yourself in shape. Stay around. Know what's going on. Know the vibe, all that kind of stuff. And when Monday comes around to the first week, getting ready for Seattle, you'll be here. We're good with it. Just make sure you're here, because that's when you start losing money. And on Monday of game week, which was 2 days ago, we're not going to be nice anymore. We're going to put you on a reserve list, and you're not going to get that $625,000. That's it. That's why he's here. Nothing's changed. He still wants too much money, at least according to the 49ers. And the 49ers are saying, we're not going to pay you that kind of money, because we're paying Deebo Samuel $34 million this year not to play for us. We're paying Brandon Ayuk an obscene amount of money for the first half of the season just about to not play for us. We're not going to just add that money to you. That's just an obscene amount of money for the wide receiver room, which, by the way, we don't value at that level, and many teams don't. Everyone was drunk or smoking something or whatever the case may be in 2024 when they gave out all those crazy contracts. And outside of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, they're really not warranted. CeeDee Lamb's okay, but he's their only offensive really player as far as the Cowboys are concerned, then they feed him the ball. I'm not saying he's not good. I'm saying he could be replaceable. Chase and Jefferson, by far the best 2 wide receivers in this game right now. And those are really, to me, the only 2 guys that deserve to be paid like that. The rest are good, not great. Those 2 are great. They're the elite 2 wide receivers in this game. The other guys, really, really good. They're the hall of really, really good. But all these other guys are getting paid like that because their agents are looking at going, okay, well, if they're worth this, my guy's worth that. And the Niners decided after they sobered up, that was a stupid contract to give Ayuk. And that was a dumb thing because Debo's going like this. And we're not going to give good players great contracts. So they're at an impasse, but Jauan Jennings is at the point where he's going to lose $625,000 a week. All right, as that is the backdrop, as it has been, here's what Kyle Shanahan said today when asked about Jauan Jennings' health. And then Eric Branch, the last question, do you have a problem contractually?
Having all that time off, we got to ease him in and stuff, so we'll see how this week goes. That's why he'll be limited today, but he's healthy enough to play football, and hopefully that continues.
Did you get a final MRI? Was there any kind of final testing to make sure the calf was okay?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, so he's good to go.
Did you tour have a setback?
No.
Just interested to know how the effect that it's been since Juwan's been back. I mean, Pooney lit up the effect on the team, and you guys looked happy to have him back out there on Monday. Pooney lit up when he was asked about Juwan, saying it was his favorite player on the team. What does he do for the locker room now that he's actually in there every day? I mean, he's been around.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like he's been gone because he's been around every day, so we get to spend time with him and all that. Having him back on the practice field Monday was awesome. I mean, we love JJ. When he's not there, he's greatly missed, and the way he carries himself, the energy he plays with, and how good of a player he is makes everyone very excited.
Obviously, there's been plenty of talk about his contract situation and everything. Can you say if there's any sort of resolution as far as the business side of things?
No, I don't think there's a totally resolution. It's the business side. I think I said at the beginning of training camp how badly myself and everyone in this building wants Jauan back in the long term. We want Colton McKivitz back. Those are 2 guys that we really hope to keep here. But they're both going into their contract year, and nothing's ever final, but we'll see how it plays out. But there's a business side to both sides, but it's something that I think both sides would love to get worked out. Just don't know if we can.
All right, let me give you a little breaking news here. Just saw this, and maybe you guys just saw this as well. Adam Schefter reporting this. After a pre-Sunday deal, the 49ers and Jauan Jennings reached agreement on a deal that will add $3 million in playtime incentives to the wide receiver's contract per his agents. Drew Rosenhaus being one of my least favorite people, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Now, instead of earning $7.5 million this season, Jennings can earn up to $10.5 million. Okay, so I told you at the beginning of this whole process, I was told that that's exactly what the 49ers were offering and were going to do. They were going to add a few $1 million to his deal, and I was told it was going to be in the $10 to $12 million range. So he gets $10.5 million this year instead of $7.5. So they add that to his deal. It's very similar to what they did to Christian McCaffrey last offseason. That's what I was told at the beginning of this whole process the 49ers wanted to do. So again, Adam Schefter reporting right now that instead of $7.5 million, Juwan Jennings is going to get 10.5. All right, great. That's what they did last offseason. And that's what the 49ers wanted to do at the beginning of this whole process. And I was told that was going to get done rather easily. 49ers were like, yep, you are a pseudo number one wide receiver, which, by the way, that's Ricky Pearsall now. But they said, okay, we'll do that for you. There was some discussion back and forth. It seemed to be positive. Then it flipped to him wanting a longer-term deal of about $20 million. And the Niners went, whoa. The Niners said, we'll get in that 12. And then they said, okay, we'll get in the 12 to $15 million range for something like 2 and 30. And they said, no chance. They said, we want it $20 million a year. And again, the Niners went to like a 12 and $15 million range and said, we could give you 2 years over like 12 to 15. Rosenhaus said, nope, don't want that. We want $20 million a year. And they wanted a longer-term deal. Niners said no. So what this seems like to me, and let's, again, listen to the end of what Kyle said there. Kyle said, we want him long-term. And obviously, the way he blocks, the way he plays, a 7th-round guy out of Tennessee that runs a 4.7 who they initially cut, the way that he's worked himself into this whole thing, they like the guy. He's the epitome of what a 49ers wide receiver should be, as is, by the way, Brandon Ayuk. Now, totally different. First-round pick. Kind of got in the doghouse a little bit. I've told you about that story before. People were wondering, well, how did Brandon Ayuk get into the doghouse in the first place early in his 49ers career? And the reason why was because, I'm just giving you one example. Brandon Ayuk at Arizona State was a guy who caught a lot of tunnel screens and quick hitters and then ran after the catch, and things didn't have to be precise and intricate. And he didn't have to block as much and all those kind of things. Well, Kyle Shanahan, we know this is about the intricacies of the position and the perfection of the offense. And his whole thing is how much, if a play is supposed to be, 10 yards, that's a 10-yard play in his mind. It better be for 10 or more, not less. And so what Brandon Ayuk was doing early in his career was, I'll round this route off and it'll be 9 yards. Well, no, it's a 7-yard route and it's a sharp cut. And so he didn't understand that at first. He wasn't playing a physical nature of a game. He wasn't blocking. And so those little tiny intricacies pissed Kyle off, and he wasn't a big fan at the beginning of Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk understood those things after a while, became a 49ers kind of a receiver, and they loved Brandon Ayuk. That's why they put up with so much shit last offseason, because they're like, we love this guy. That's why Kyle ran up the stairs and didn't want to trade him to Pittsburgh at the last minute, because they had developed this guy into the type of wide receiver that Kyle wanted. And remember, they busted on some of these guys early. Dante Pettis, and they thought they had a guy who could be a special teams guy and make some plays and run those reverses and jet sweeps and everything that Deebo Samuel did. Because remember, at Washington, he had, 10, 12, 14, whatever it was, punt return, kick return, touchdowns. He was a playmaker, but he was too thin. He wasn't that kind of physicality. He didn't get it. He wouldn't block. He just didn't have that kind of frame. So Kyle was kind of busted on these receivers, and all of a sudden he turned Ayuk into what we know he is now. So he didn't want to lose that. And they don't want to lose Juwan Jennings because of the way that he's playing, but because they just gave him $3 more million, which, by the way, has been on the table since he was disgruntled this offseason, or since he came to training camp, originally asked for that trade. This extra $3 million that Adam Schefter is reporting now has been on the table for weeks. The $20 million that Tim Kawakami reported about a week ago, which I reported about 3 weeks ago, is something that just had come up those couple of weeks ago. And that's where the 49ers went no. And the 49ers said, look, we got the $3 million on the table, or we can do 2 years for a reasonable amount of money, but we're not going up to $20 million. And like I said, they went to the camp, to Rosenhaus in that camp, and they went, look, we're paying Deebo 34. We're paying Ayuk not to play until midseason. We're not going to now add a $20 million wide receiver in Juwan Jennings. When, to be honest with you, and they didn't say this, but to be honest with you, we want Ricky Pearsall to be our number one wide receiver. So if you think about next year, okay, this year is this year. Sunday is Sunday, and that's week 1. But if you look at even next year, number one wide receiver, probably Brandon Ayuk. Number 2 wide receiver, probably Ricky Pearsall. And then in the slot, maybe Juwan Jennings, or maybe it's Jordan Watkins, or maybe it's somebody they bring in, or maybe it's, there's wide receivers all over the place. And now you're looking for a number 3. And again, they want to keep Juwan Jennings. They've developed him into that type of wide receiver. Kyle loves him. He blocks. He sets a tone. He's all those things. But they're not going to pay him $20 million. They still have residual next year over Deebo Samuel. Not $34 million, but they're still going to be paying him. They're still paying Brandon Ayuk that deal unless they get rid of him, which I don't know that they're going to at this point. They've kind of already got that. So my point is that Juwan Jennings is probably a third wide receiver next year. He's still going to be looking for that kind of money if he has this, the kind of year he had last year, 75 for almost 1,000 yards. I like Juwan Jennings, but the Niners are never going to pay him in the $20 million range. They learned their lesson. They got bit by Deebo, who they think is a descending player. They got bit by Brandon Ayuk, who they obviously overpaid, and they feel that way. The things that have come out of 49er land, those aren't a joke. I mean, if they could have traded him, they probably would have traded him, but with the injury, they can't. Plus, they would have eaten a ton more money this year. So it wasn't something that they could have done. So it's something that they've kind of reassessed the formula, and they've said to themselves, wait, whoa. How were we great anyway? Well, you were great because remember the defensive line when they went to the Super Bowl the first time against the Chiefs? That was how you got there. Punching people in the face, running the football, playing great defense. That's 49ers football under Kyle Shanahan. It's not having a bunch of fancy wide receivers. So they went, wait a minute, let's reassess our situation. So again, if you just joined us, Adam Schefter reporting, and this like I said, this has been on the table for weeks. And I told you this, I don't know, a month or so ago, right when camp started. So instead of $7.5 million, Juwan Jennings is going to earn up to $10.5 million in playing time incentives. So he gets $625,000 per week, as I told you. And then they're going to add playtime incentives that will add up to $3 million. So he can make up to $10.5 million. And they're probably easy playtime incentives. And then in the offseason, we'll just have to see. Because what this is going to depend on is, how does Brandon Ayuk come back? What kind of season does Ricky Pearsall have? What kind of season does Juwan Jennings have? Because this isn't just on Juwan Jennings. This is, if Ricky Pearsall breaks out the way I think Ricky Pearsall is going to break out, I think Ricky Pearsall is going to have an 80-catch season. I think Ricky Pearsall is going to have 1,100 yards. And again, I don't know how touchdowns work out because I told you this last night. Trey McBride, the tight end for the Cardinals, I was watching, it was either week 16 or 17. He had like 100 catches, no touchdowns, which is crazy, especially for a tight end. But touchdowns are weird. But targets, catches, yards, those kind of things. I mean, if you catch normally, if you catch 80 balls, you're probably going to catch 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. So, I mean, I think Pearsall is going to have that kind of a year. And somebody last night hit me up in the comment section and said, Lund's saying that Pearsall's going to have 1,200 yards. Well, I said 1,100, but even 1,200 yards. Do you know with 17 games what that is? That's 70 yards a game. So it's not like you're exactly ripping the top off the defense. I mean, 70 yards a game is decent for a wide receiver. But 17 games we're talking about now, like 1,000-yard back over 17 is not very many yards. What's that, about 60, something like that? I mean, it's not much. So it's, even 1,200 yards, that's a nice season for a guy, but you're not averaging 100 a game. So I think Ricky Pearsall is going to be their number one receiver. It's going to take a minute for Ayuk to come back, even when he does. I think Juwan Jennings is going to have a really solid year. But remember, Kittle is there. Now CMC is back. You know that Kyle Shanahan wants to run the ball, so we'll see what happens. But this is great news for this season for Juwan Jennings. This is a great move for this season if you're a 49ers fan, because he's playing on Sunday, and Pearsall's playing on Sunday, and the 5 receivers are going to be up. In fact, let me play this for you from Kyle today. Here's Kyle talking about the 5 wide receivers that are going to be up on Sunday.
Very fluid. I mean, it's guys that we got a hunch about. I mean, there's guys like that have been here for a bit, like that's, especially like Gage and stuff. He's been around here since last year and had a real good offseason, but finished those last 2 weeks hurt, which made some uncertainty about him, but I got a much better idea there. Just get into MVS here. Guys like Robbie and stuff who joined later in the deal, Malik Turner. All those guys have an opportunity to help us. We're going to most likely get 5 up for the game. Sky Moore's another new one. All these guys have been here really the last week, and they've all been working. But they definitely need 3 more days of practice to see which ones we want to put in which role.
All right, so what he said there is he just said the 5. So they just put MVS, Marquez, Valdez, Scantling on the roster. There's a reason why they did that. They took off Gage and then put him back on, and that's just a procedural thing. Let me get Kyle off the stage there. That's just a procedural thing, guaranteed monies and all those kind of things. So the 5 that are going to be up, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Sky Moore because he's a special teams guy. Plus, they can run him with some of the jet sweeps and all those kind of things. So there's 3, and he can play in the slot. Russell Gage because he trusts him. You just heard that. He was with him in camp, played really well, got hurt at the end. There's 4. And then what was the other one? Valdez Scantling, I think, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, with Moore being 3, Scantling being 4, and Gage being 5. So that's going to be your 5 wide receivers on Sunday. And to be completely honest with you, 2 weeks ago, and I told you Jennings was going to be back, so I wasn't really worried about Jennings. But I was like, Jennings, Pearsall, and because remember, Gage got hurt and Jordan Watkins got hurt. And I was like, and they didn't have Valdez Scantling at that point. And I was like, I know Robbie Chosen is on the practice squad, but I'm like, when's the last time that dude was any good? So it was looking ugly because I was like, okay, what are they going to do? They're going to play McCaffrey in the slot? You know, I mean, George Kittle love him, and he has monster games against the Seahawks, especially up in Seattle, time and time again. And I expect him to have another one, but my God, man, it's ridiculous the point to where it's gotten. So anyway, my point is this, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Hit me up on the chat line on X. I'd love to get your thoughts at John Lund Radio. Now that we kind of know what the receivers are going to look like Sunday in Seattle, just give me your thoughts. I mean, how do you feel about it? Now, throw in Kittle, offensive skill position guys, throw in McCaffrey, and let's go. I feel pretty good about it, to be honest with you. I don't feel terrible about what has kind of transpired. And I talked about this a little bit last night. You go from early in camp and all these injuries. I'm going to hit Kyle's talking about the young defense here in a second. But all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, okay, lots of injuries with the wide receivers. And look, Ayuk's still out. I would have loved to have seen Jordan Watkins, but I think you got to give the front office some credit here because they're using a little bit of duct tape and spit and slime and all this kind of stuff because you start looking at this whole thing and you say, all right, Ricky Pearsall was down a little bit early in camp. He's back. Juwan Jennings was bitching and moaning, the calf, all to the contract. The Niners just waited. And you got to give an organization a lot of credit on this because a guy like Jerry Jones, well, Juwan Jennings, he'd have traded him. He'd have bitched and moaned. He'd have pissed off, Drew Rosenhaus, Juwan Jennings' agent. He'd have done something like that. But the Niners just kind of sit back. Okay, you're gonna miss camp. You know what we're gonna do? We're not gonna fine you. We're not gonna out you. We're not gonna talk trash. We're just, we're gonna keep on the line of the calf, even though we know it's the contract. And we know when the leverage starts. It starts on Monday, the game week Monday, because then we can put you on a reserve list and you miss $625,000. We're not going to bitch and moan about it. We know you're going to be back. And then they back Juwan Jennings into a corner, and Juwan Jennings says, fine, that number that you've had, and I told you about right when Juwan Jennings said, oh, my calf. I told you they had about $3 million on the table. I told you they had 2 scenarios on the table. They were going to put about $3 extra million. I told you between $10 and $12 million to put on top of the $7.5 million. Adam Schefter reporting it's 10.5 now. So they added $3 million to it and easily attainable incentives. And then I told you that they were going to go a 2-year deal, like anywhere from 12 to 15, and they rejected that. So what it's going to come down to is, how does Juwan Jennings perform? How does Ricky Pearsall perform? How does Ayuk perform when he comes back? And Juwan Jennings is having a roll of the dice that says, I'm going to have a big year again. Now, if Pearsall catches 80, Ayuk is really good when he comes back, then Juwan Jennings can still have a good year. But next year, it's going to be for another team, because if you're the Niners, you're going, well, Ayuk's back full blast. Pearsall has a breakout year, and everything you see from, and I've told you this before, from Ricky Pearsall on the field, there is no reason, from hands, route running, body control, just everything you see from Ricky Pearsall is he's going to be a good NFL receiver. I'm not going to go beyond that for right now, but there's no reason Ricky Pearsall can't be a very good NFL receiver. So if those 2 guys are great this year, when Ayuk comes back and Pearsall from week 1, then Jennings is going to be a number 3 wide receiver. And I'm sorry, number 3 wide receivers don't get paid $20 million a year. Now, they might from a desperate team. I don't know. Jerry Jones has George Pickens on a 1-year deal, and he has CeeDee Lamb. Dallas might pay him $20 million next year. New England's still desperate. That they might pay him $20 million a year. Pittsburgh still hasn't got it completely done. I mean, they picked up DK, but not a lot else. They might pay him $20 million. I mean, somebody might, but the Niners are going to go, we have Ayuk, we have Pearsall. We're not going to add our number 3 wide receiver at $20 million a year. Not happening. So we'll see. But anyway, good news. I would say that is good news for the 49ers to have him accept that, because what he essentially did was to say, I did my best. I held in. I tried to, shake the tree a little bit. And the Niners said, we'll just wait till week 1. That's where the leverage is for us. If you don't suit up, you lose that 625. And we've had this little bump on the table here for, 5-6 weeks. And that's what, we didn't take it off the table because we're not a bunch of jerks and idiots. And so he finally said, this is the best I'm going to do this year. I knock in, $3 extra million. And then next year I get the big money. So, whatever people say about the 49ers, that's a brilliant way that they played this Juwan Jennings situation. We'll just wait. Week 1, if you're not going to, if we have to put you on some sort of list, you miss $625,000. We're giving you a $3 million bump here. And you know what? We're not going to bitch. We're not going to moan. We're going to stay with this whole thing, your calf hurts deal. That is out of respect to you. And Juwan Jennings goes in and he's fist bumping and hugging and everybody feels good until next year. And Juwan Jennings knows, he talks to his agents and says, look, man, dude, you got to have another hell of a year. So that's it. All right. So we've done long enough on Juwan Jennings. But again, he gets a $3 million bump. That's all we got to know. By the way, if you don't believe me, here, let me do this because I did this while I was yip-yapping. Just so you know I'm not lying. There it is. So there you go. Blah, 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 blah. Add 3 million, playtime incentives, blah, 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 7.5 up to 10.5. And they're playtime incentives. So unless he gets hurt, he'll easily get those playtime incentives. So there's the deal on Juwan Jennings. Let me get this off my screen there. So there you go. There is the Juwan Jennings thing. We spent far too long on that. All right, let me give you one more. So again, Kyle Talks is where we are, episode 232. So Jennings' latest gave you that. Wide receivers on Sunday. I just told you who the 5 that are going to be up. Youth on defense. We have talked about this again and again and again. But let's get into this. Here's Kyle talking about the young guys on defense and what he expects. And then there's a little bonus here. And I want to focus on this for a minute because camp is weird. It goes from the beginning, and I was so giddy and so excited for CJ West, and I still am. But Mikael Williams got off to a great start. And CJ West got off to a great start. And Nick Martin got off to a slow start. And then he was really good. And Alfred Collins I think he was a little overweight, and he actually lost weight in camp. And in OTAs, he had an ankle issue, and he really came on. And then remember, Upton Stout was just kicking ass and taking names. And every day I would come back to do the show, and I'd be like, Upton Stout won the job. Upton Stout's the nickel. Upton Stout's the man. Upton Stout, he's going to be the guy. He's the next steal of the Niners, 3rd round, Western Kentucky. I don't care if he's 5'8". And then he gets hurt. And all of a sudden, it's like, we're not hearing from Upton Stout. He doesn't play in preseason. And I still think he's going to be the starter against Seattle. I went from this is a no-brainer to I hope he can hold up against Seattle because they're going to be playing some guys in the slot. And I'm going to tell you something that my friend Ian Furness told us last night, that if you missed the show last night is very relevant to Upton Stout. But anyway, my point is that young players, even through camp, do these kind of ebb and flow things. So here's Kyle. First, he'll talk about the youth on defense. And then second of all, he gives a big compliment to Alfred Collins, who I think is going to be huge on Sunday against the Seahawks.
This year goes, and we're going to start out doing that. Getting a lot of those guys back has been nice, but those guys missing a lot of camp too has been a struggle. Starting with Michael and looking at guys like Stout and things like that. Getting CJ West back here last week too. So hopefully we had a good week of practice, get them back in the thick of things, and they have a good first game.
Alfred Collins' progress from coming back from the injury.
Who's that?
Alfred Collins.
From college?
I mean, just from being injured to getting
He's been
back.
awesome. I mean, missing OTAs, missing the offseason. You never know, especially with such a big guy. When they can't go through all the conditioning and other stuff we're doing, it's usually a worry because you're rehabbing the calf so much and all the stuff that he had. But when he came back, it took him a little bit of time to get his legs under him. That was a cool thing to watch. I was always nervous he was going to get hurt and then miss the next 2 weeks or something like that. But he fought through it, was able to stay healthy, kept grinding every day, and eventually got his conditioning, got his legs back, and thought he had a real good camp and give him a chance to have a real good year.
All right, so to me, and let me just show you the roster because I mean you know what it looks like, but let me just Let's see. I hit the wrong button there. You never know what's going to pop up on my screen. So let's see here. Niners depth chart. All right, let's hit this. There'll probably be some ad. Nope, no ads. All right, beautiful. So looking at the youth, and you know this. Okay, so this is one man's opinion, our lads, but I like popping them up. So I think it's going to go like this. And Robert Saleh said halfway through camp, we could have 6 to 8 rookies starting for the 49ers. That's not going to be the case week 1 in Seattle. We know Nick. Jordan Elliott, let's be honest, man. He had a shit year last year. I mean, there's just no way around it. And the reason why they signed him, I think 3/4 of the reason was, if you go back a couple of years when the Niners lost to P.J. Walker at quarterback in the Browns, they couldn't run the ball. Jordan Elliott was one of the guys inside. Dalvin Tomlinson, who's in Arizona, was one of the other guys inside. But Elliott absolutely, positively helped shut down the run that day. And it was like, we got to get that guy. He didn't have a good year last year, banged up a little bit in camp, but I think he's going to start. Kalia Davis showed a little bit in some preseason games, and I think he's going to start. And then Mikael Williams, the first-round pick, has showed enough in camp since his return from the hyperextended knee that he's going to start. So you are going to get one rookie on the D-line. But you're going to get a lot of CJ West, and I told you this early in camp, and I'm not sure that this is going to be the case. Certainly before CJ West got hurt, their turbo package, which is their pass rushing package on the defensive line, is going to be Bosa. You're going to move Bryce Huff, 47, and he is a rocket off the edge. So I'm in Tunning camp, and he's going to be a badass. So he's going to be there. They're going to move Mikael Williams, who's actually a better interior pass rusher at this point in his career. They're going to move him inside. And then what I hope to see happen, because Elliott and Davis will probably start, is that they move West inside there as part of the pass rushing package. Now, hopefully that remains the case. Certainly early in camp it was, but I'm not sure that he's regained that spot. Certainly early in camp that was the case. Now, Collins has kind of jumped forth a little bit, not so much to take the job away from Kalia Davis, but I think he's going to be heavily in the rotation, which early in camp, I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case. So you're going to get heavy rotation with CJ West, Alfred Collins. I think West is going to be in some pass rush packages. Gross Matos, it doesn't look like he's going to be there week 1, which is too bad, because I think that would have been a nice rotation because, again, he can play inside. He can play outside. That would have been a nice piece. Don't know how much Jefferson we're going to see. They just picked him up. So we'll see kind of how that rotation works. But certainly 3 rookies in West, Collins, and Mikael Williams are going to rotate in there. And then Williams is huge because he's going to be outside on base downs, and he's going to be inside as part of the turbo package or the pass rushing package. I'm just anxious to see if CJ West is part of that pass rushing package as well. So that's how that's going to work on the defensive side. And then speaking of rookies again, I expect a ton out of D. Winters, who had a great camp, Fred Warner. And then what's interesting here is they don't play the 3 linebacker set a lot. And if they do, here's what's going to be interesting. Is it going to be Martin on the strong side, or is it going to be Gifford? Gifford is a guy they got from Tennessee, mostly on special teams. But Martin, after a horrendous first game against Denver, against the Raiders and against the Chargers, played with his hair on fire. And I'd love to see him. Why not? It just depends on how much they trust him defensively. But I'd love to see Martin out there. 2 really good preseason games at the end. And then in the secondary, again, Renardo Green missed a lot of camp, but they just don't have anybody. This is my biggest concern probably on the entire team, to be honest with you. The depth at corner is nil, nothing, zilch, 0. So beyond Lenore and Green, which I have trust in, Saran Neal is a special teams guy. Darrell Luter Jr. is not ready for prime time. That's really a problem. And then it looks like it's going to be Pinnock and Brown. And if you didn't hear see Kyle's presser today, he heaped lots of praise on Jair Brown, which tells me it's going to be him. And they'll have a 3 safety rotation. But those 2 guys right there in Siegel and Pinnock are both in the box kind of safeties. And against Seattle, that might be okay because they're going to run the football a lot. The thing that scares the hell out of me from a safety position is they have 2 tight ends in Barner, and especially this kid out of Miami, Arroyo, who wears 18 for Seattle. Guy is great in the seam. He's a great receiving tight end. They're going to play a lot of double tight ends, Seattle. And the second tight end, especially Arroyo, is really good. He's got some really good speed. And that might fall on Jair Brown, and that's going to scare the hell out of me. That's one matchup that I'm watching. And then, again, this is our lad, so who knows? Lucas had a great preseason, and Stout missed a ton of time, but probably not enough in Lucas's case to unseat Stout because he was so good early. And I've said this before, stout. And if I show you Seattle's, well, you don't need to see Seattle's depth chart, to hell with them. My point is, in Seattle, I'm looking at their depth chart, Cooper Kupp, and my friend Ian Furness told me this last night if you were on the show. They play their splits, their wide receivers. Let's break it down. Their splits are so tight that what they can do with their wide receivers is, let's just say Cooper Kupp is a slot guy. And Jackson Smith and Jigba was one of the best slot guys last year. So you got two slot guys, but their splits are so tight that they can play these guys tight. And then, they might cross them or something like that. So you never know who's really the slot receiver. And that's where they're going to look at Upton Stout and say, look, we get it. The guy was really good. Lots of teams had high grades on him, but he comes from Western Kentucky. And you got two really good slot receivers in Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Smith and Jigba caught over 100 passes last year, and they're going to test Upton Stout. And one of the big things of the game is going to be, obviously for both teams, and Kyle talked a ton about this today, they are mirror images. You got two guys named Kubiak running the offenses, even though Kyle's the play caller. Very similar things. They both want to run. They both want to, minimize things. Neither team wants to throw the ball 35 times. They're going to rely on their run game, and then they're going to strategically throw the football at key times, use the run to set up the pass. Upton Stout's going to be an interesting guy because he's going to have to be, and I've used the K'Wan Williams thing a lot. He's going to have to come up and make tackles out of the slot. And then the other thing is going to be, they're going to try to confuse him with those tight splits. Who's really in the slot? Who's moving where? Who does he got to pick up? And look, he's not going to be perfect. And this is where I go back to the youth of the defense. He's not going to be perfect. He's going to make some mistakes. But as long as they're not, 80-yard mistakes down the field, I think he'll make enough plays. But the guys I'm watching on defense, Stout is going to be one to watch. And then that defensive line, can they stop the run? Jordan Elliott didn't have a great year. Kalia Davis hasn't played a ton, rotating in there, CJ West. And the reason I played the Alfred Collins stuff from Kyle today is if he's coming on and the Seahawks can't move him out of the middle with what they think is an improved offensive line, that's going to be a key to the game. And Collins may play more snaps because this is going to be a north-south football team, kind of like Kyle. Again, they are 1 foot in the ground and go forward. And they have this fullback, and I know that we don't talk a lot of fullbacks, but a guy named Robbie Oots. He's a former tight end at Alabama. They haven't used a ton of fullback in Seattle over the years, but they have adapted right to the 49ers, and he's not Kyle Juszczyk. He's not going to catch the ball. He wears 40. He's 275 pounds, and they're going to run the football right behind that dude. So wherever 40 goes, that's where the ball's going. And can the 49ers and that young defensive line and get Fred Warner in there and whatever, shoot the gaps and stop that run, because that's what Seattle's going to try to do after having a horrendous run game last year. There's your breakdown, man. Love it or leave it. All right, youth on defense. That's where we are. I got into that whole tangent to do youth on defense. So let's stop for a second here. I'm going to get into I just talked about mirror images, actually. So I go youth on defense, mirror images, with the injuries in a second, because everybody loves injuries, and Wednesday is kind of injury day. So let's pause for a second. What's everybody saying on the chat line? And again, John Lund Unleashed, YouTube. Hit us up right here in the chat room. Come on over, say hello, questions, comments, or thoughts. And if, again, we got some supers I'm going to get to in just 1 second. In fact, let me do that first. Supers deserve top of the line here. There's our good friend Fuji. Bottom of the pint this week or next week. If I was a betting man, I'd say next week against LA, because I believe Krug is in full NFL mode, and NFL will be tomorrow night, Eagles, Cowboys, Friday night, Chargers, Chiefs. I mean, my God. In fact, this is a good time to do this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at the schedule. Are you kidding? Eagles, Cowboys tomorrow night. Chargers, Chiefs from Brazil. College football full slate. Sunday full slate, game week 1. Bears, Vikings week 1. Are you kidding me? And even if you're not a Vikings Bears fan, I mean, everybody's got betting. Everybody's got fantasy. Caleb Williams year 2. J.J. McCarthy year 1. I mean, come on. I mean, he was a rookie last year, but he was hurt. So, I mean, you're talking about his first NFL start. I mean, that's a great slate. The college games aren't quite as good this week. There is no Ohio State, Texas, or anything like that. But, I mean, are you kidding me? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I don't know what you have to do. I don't know what kind of chores you have to do tonight. I don't know what you have to do to have enough equity built up in the closet to sit on your couch for 5 consecutive days, but do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. Because tomorrow night you're going to be watching because it's the start of the NFL season. Chargers, Chiefs, that's a big game. Jim Harbaugh's in that one. You got to watch. Maybe you take some of the day off for college football because, like I said, it's not the greatest slate, but still. Sunday, you're watching Niners, Seahawks, and everything else. And then Bears, Vikings, a great game on Monday night. I mean, we are in it right now. So anyway, I would be betting next week. Fuji. Would it have been better for JJ if he asked for an extension prior to the draft? Yeah. I mean, look, they did this. Drew Rosenhaus is no rookie. They did this on purpose. They sat down. Drew Rosenhaus sat down with Juwan Jennings and said, look, man, let's map this thing out. If we wait, because here's what they did. Let me back up. They said to Juwan Jennings, do you want to stay with the 49ers or not? Because if you don't want to stay with the 49ers, what we'll do is, because they knew at that point Brandon Ayuk was hurt. They knew at that point, Ricky Pearsall was a question mark. They knew that Juwan Jennings was at that point going to be the pseudo number 1 wide receiver for the 49ers coming off a 6-11 season, and there would be pressure. So at that point, they could have said in April, look, man, we want to trade or we want to raise. But Juwan Jennings probably said, look, man, the 49ers are the team that gave me the chance. They fit my style. I like Kyle. I like John. I like the organization. I like being here, and they use me in the way that is correct. Because some guys don't get it, to be honest. Some guys are like, I could just flourish anywhere. And I'm sure Juwan Jennings has a hell of a lot of confidence in himself, but some guys are smart enough to go, you know what? I'm a fit. And I don't know if I could do this everywhere. I'm a fit, and I want to be here. And some guys just want to be somewhere. And I think that Juwan Jennings is that guy. I mean, you saw it yesterday, and he gets, if you just joined us, he gets $3 extra million. That was on the table for a long time with the 49ers, and Adam Schefter reports that today. So he's got $3 million in very makeable playtime incentives. He's at $7.5 million. It's up to $10.5 million. That was worst case scenario, and he always had that on the table this whole time. So he's saying to himself, okay, I can live with that. But Drew Rosenhaus, I'm sure, went to him around the draft and said, look, if you don't want to be a 49er, then we can force the hand right now at the draft and probably get you traded. And Juwan Jennings went, no, I want to stay a 49er. So then what Drew Rosenhaus, again, not his first rodeo, did was waited till the last minute where the highest leverage point was and said, we want to be traded now. And the Niners are like, great. Ricky Pearsall's hurt again. They got all these situations. They know Ayuk, all this kind of stuff. And it was right before camp started. And I'm not saying he didn't have a calf injury at the time or it didn't flare up from OTAs, but it's not as bad as what everybody had made it out to be. And the reason you can tell that is every time it's brought up, he's fine, everything's clear. It's a contractual thing. And so now they get to the point where they pushed it as far as they could possibly push it. And then he starts losing money again, $625,000 in roster bonuses every single Sunday. And then they take this extra money on the table. It's free money. Why not? That's been on the table for, the 5 weeks that he's kind of not been in camp. And they called the Niners, bluff. The 49ers sat back, treated him with respect, didn't blow anything out of proportion, stayed with the whole calf bit and gave him the few extra $1 million. JJ's going to go out and he's going to have to perform again. And then we'll see at the end of the season what happens. If Ricky Pearsall falls on his face and Brandon Ayuk doesn't come back and is very good, the Niners may have to pay him the money. But a betting man would say Pearsall's going to have a good year. Ayuk's going to come back fine. Juwan Jennings is going to be the third wide receiver. And the Niners say, God, we'd love to keep you, but we can't pay you $20 million. And it's going to be adios. He probably plays this year, and then he's probably on another team next year. That's probably what's going to happen. So if he wanted, my point is to the great question of the great Fuji, is that if he wanted to get traded, he could have done this in April. But I think that he understood that he was a fit and tried to play the hand dealt him, which was, I got some leverage here. Let's try to see if we can play this. But the Niners aren't stupid. You can say a lot of things about the 49ers, but their front office, they know how to play these situations. They know how to play the cap game. They know how to play the leverage game. You may not agree with some of the things they've done, but you know what? In this offseason, they got Brock signed. They got Fred signed. They got George signed. They changed their philosophy of, hey, we'll wait till camp and we'll just, we'll maximize leverage. They got all this stuff done. So you can't really complain. I mean, I get it if you don't like that Huff signed somewhere else and you don't like the way they handled Greenlaw and all those things and the guys that they lost and you don't agree with letting Debo go or anything like that. I get it. I'm on board with all that stuff. I think those guys were going this way and we're getting paid this way. We'll see. But I think, they use the Bills and the Rams as a blueprint, thinking, you know what, we can still cut some money, pay some credit card bills, and still go this way. So we'll see. And maybe the schedule says they can do that. But anyway, great question. Foods with another one. Thoughts on teams trying to prevent season ticket holders from selling their tickets. On the projected 53% of fans at Seattle will be Niners fans. Somebody brought that up, and Nick Wagner was the one who I first saw say this, so I want to make sure I give him credit. And I'm not saying that that's not accurate, but it's just one way that they're doing this by analysis. So yeah, this was last night, and Nick reported, who does a great job covering the Niners for ESPN, that 53% of tickets were going to be to 49ers fans. And they do that by zip code. Seattle used to be a place that, they prided themselves on the 12th man, and it was a really tough place to play, and it was incredibly loud, whether they pump in sound or not, whatever. But that's not the case. But somebody brought up a great point. I can't remember who it was. It might have been anyway, somebody brought it up last night, and which was, a lot of people who used to live in California have been forced out of California, and they're going up to Washington and Oregon and Idaho and all these different places. Well, even if they're not in Washington, like I lived in Portland, did sports radio in Portland, that's only a few hours from Seattle. If you're a Niners fan and you live in Idaho, that's not so far. If you're a Niners fan and you live in Montana, that's not so far. That's a quick, Alaskan Airlines or Southwest ticket over to Seattle. Why not? So, that's part of it, is that a lot of people have fled California for various reasons, and now they're in the Northwest in one of those states, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, whatever. That's their opportunity to see the Seahawks play, to see the 49ers play in Seattle. So that's been part of it. And then the other part of it is, as we know, 49ers fans, especially over the last number of years, they're one of the better traveling organizations or fan bases in the league. Pittsburgh is up there, certainly, as one of the best, but the Niners have become one of the better, I don't know what I'd call them, top 3, top 5. So you combine those things, and I think that that's no surprise. It is a little bit of a surprise in that Seattle's not terrible. I mean, Seattle was a 10-win team last year. It's not like they're winning 3 and 4 games and they're like, hell with it, we're not any good. But it is a vast change from, remember, when after Harbaugh left, so let's start like 2014 and beyond, and it became Tom Sula and it became Chip Kelly and those kind of things. I mean, the Seahawks fans were obnoxious because I was doing all the pre and post game. I was at all those games, and it was like they'd be slamming on the window when we'd be doing the pregame show and stuff, and constant nuclear puke green and all that kind of stuff. And you could just see it in the stands. I mean, there was a sea of it. Not like Packers fans. I mean, Packers fans, they travel really well. There's certain other fan bases that do as well. But I mean, Seattle used to invade Levi's Stadium at a pretty high level. So they used to travel really well. You don't see them as much now. But yeah, it's a little bit surprising. But I do believe that the way that, kind of the exodus, and mass exodus, whatever you want to call it, out of California to some of those Northwest states, I think that plays a part in it. But it is still a little bit surprising. I mean, you're in your home stadium. Seattle is known, or was known, for being a really tough place to play. And to have 53% of the fans, at least according to that metric, be Niners fans, that's pretty amazing. I mean, it's not like, LA is a joke. I mean, I've covered numerous games down there at SoFi, and I said this last night. I mean, it's probably 70-30, if not 75-25 Niners fans. And Rams fans don't even try to fight you on it. I mean, you like I said, I'm up in a booth there, and it's kind of in a corner, but I mean, you can see the entire stadium from where I am in the radio booth in LA. And I mean, it's a sea of red. And when the Niners make a play, I mean, it's loud as hell. So it'll be interesting this Sunday in Seattle, because that's how you can really tell is how loud is the stadium when one team makes a play versus another. Because in LA, it's overwhelming in that stadium when the Niners make a play versus when the Rams do. I mean, it's not even close. It's like it's a home game. So anyway, let's see. Elliot is, hey, Tommy, good to see you, man. Elliot is a bum. Which one? Which Elliot? So there you go. We haven't even got to the main story of the day. I can't wait to get to it. I know we're talking a ton of Niners tonight, and we should be. But we got to get to the main story here in just a second. I still have injuries to get to, NFC West predictions, Born No Need, and then we'll get to some other stuff. But thank you so much for the super so far on the show. It supports the show, which is great, and I love to get your Absolute, positively great questions and comments on the show. So thanks to Tommy. Thanks to Fuji for the supers as well. And again, if you want to get your stuff on the show 100%, make sure that you hit me with a super. Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. Niners on the West Coast, been like that for years. I mean, Arizona, that's a joke because Arizona doesn't even have a fan base, because that's kind of a transient city as far as, you go, I've been to a Cowboys Cardinals game in Arizona. I've covered that. In fact, I did sidelines years ago for ESPN for a Cardinals Cowboys game. I mean, that was like being in Dallas. And I was asking some people after the game, like, we just live here. Just people just relocate, or like lots of teams in the Midwest, Bears, Packers, Lions, like teams that people are just sick and tired of being cold. And they just go live in Arizona. And then it's like, they don't even have fans. Like if the Cardinals do well, they'll get some fans. Like you've probably been down there for like a Giants game or something. They don't even have fans. Joe Schmo, haven't seen you in a while. It was great to see you tonight. My good friend Dom Peralta. Good to see you, man. Nobody has to apologize for anything, man. Great to see you. Let's see who else do we have here tonight. We have a lot of people jumping in the room. Absolutely, positively great. If you missed anything, again, episode 232, Kyle Talks, played some of that. Jennings latest, and if you missed that, he got a bump, and not that kind of bump, but $7.5 million to $10.5 million. So he got bumped up $3 million. That had been on the table for about 5 weeks, so he finally took it. Very easy playtime incentives. Wide receivers on Sunday, we told you the 5 that are going to be up. Youth on defense, that is something that we've talked about all of the offseason, but Kyle is both concerned and kind of excited about it. Mirror images, these two teams both have offensive coordinators named Kubiak and both want to run the ball. Injuries, we haven't gotten to that point. So let me throw up a couple of things here. First of all, this is Brady Henderson, who is the equivalent. He is the he covers the Seahawks for ESPN, so he's the same thing as what Nick Wagner does for the Niners. Torrey Horton, you may say, who the hell's that? He's their number 3 wide receiver. He's the very reason why Marquez Valdez-Scantling is a Niner, because Horton beat him out. He's a 5th-round pick out of Colorado State who had a great camp. He had an ankle injury in the second preseason game, but he is back full at practice. Uchenna Nwosu had been out for a while. He looks like he's going to play. He's a nice edge rusher. Jake Bobo, concussion, looks like he's going to play. Don't worry about Derek Young. He's more of a special teamer, as is Cody White. The bigger name is right there. Tyrese Knight was injured. He starts he's the second linebacker for their team, and he had an injured knee throughout camp, but he's going to start. So those are the injuries for Seattle, and they're looking fairly healthy. If you want a bigger picture of injuries, and everybody seems to, that's terrible. I did a terrible job of that. Let's see if I can get that a little bit bigger for you. But Ben Barch, full participation. Clea Davis, full. Gross Matos, he's probably not going to play on Sunday. So you should look at that. Limited, Jordan James, Juwan Jennings, he's going to play. And then a bunch of fulls. Pooney's going to play, even though it says limited there. So again, the Niners, I know this is weird to say because we're like, well, this is as healthy they've been. We were so worried about what they were going to be as far as the injuries are concerned early in camp. They're fine. They're going to be fine. So, whatever happens later in the season, whatever. Wednesday, as I told you before, is kind of injury day because that's when the coaches have to give out the injury report. So Tuesday is players' day off. Monday is more of a review of Sunday. They don't have to say anything until Wednesday about injuries. And so Wednesday is always a big day to tune into the show because then it kind of gives you the update on what players are going to do. But as far as the Niners are concerned, it does say limited for Pooney. He's playing. It does say limited for Juwan Jennings. He's playing. So there's no worries as far as the 49ers are concerned. The only injury, and he hasn't been back the entire point or the entire camp anyway, is Yetur Gross-Matos. And I'd love for him to play because he's an inside-outside kind of a guy. But look, that's why they took Mikael Williams in the first round, and he's got to step up, regardless of what, he didn't play in camp, he missed preseason games, whatever, dude. You got to step up, and you got to be a force on Sunday in Seattle. So that's the latest as far as that goes. All right, predictions. The only reason I'm bringing up predictions today, and if I'd known I was going to go this long on all the conversations, is we're about an hour into this thing, and I can't wait to get to the NFL Wire tonight. But the only guy to like among the NFL Network guys, and I'm so ashamed of you, Steve Mariucci. But there you go. Those are the NFL Game Day guys. What the hell do they know? Mr. Kurt Warner, who's Mr. Arizona, he knew he wasn't going to take the Cardinals, though. He takes the Niners. That's Gerald McCoy on the right, the former Buccaneer. He takes the Rams. Mooch takes the Rams. Rich Eisen takes the Rams. I think the Seahawks are going to be a factor in this. I think the Cardinals are a year away like they always are, but only Kurt Warner likes the Niners. Everybody else likes the Rams. The only things I would say about the Rams, and I'm going to follow up with this with the little Richard Sherman for you, is the health of Matthew Stafford at the age of 37. Here's Richard Sherman as he gives you a quick prediction on his podcast. He's concerned about Stafford too.
Know how Matthew Stafford's back is going to be throughout the whole season, and that's going to keep the Rams at least second for me, or second or third. They're not going to win it right now for me. So I think it's between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. I think the first game will determine a lot. I think Seattle wins the division in a tie record-wise with the San Francisco 49ers, but it's going to be a close tiebreaker. I think they both win 11 games. I think Seattle has enough to make the jump and to do that and win 11 games. I also think San Francisco is talented enough to win 11 games. If San Francisco wins 13 games, nobody'd be that surprised. Now, if Seattle wins 13 games, people will be like, oh my God, we were so wrong. But I see the Seattle Seahawks a lot better than everybody else does. And we'll see if I know football in week one and how they do against San Francisco 49ers. But to say 8.5 wins is insanity for the team I've seen in the way they've been executing, the way they've been working. If they get 8 wins, Mitchell, I don't know nothing, and I need to stop this.
All right, so that's what Richard Sherman says, and I agree with him in that the Rams' season depends on Matthew Stafford's health, and I'm not sure what Stafford's health is going to be at 37. He didn't play in the preseason, rarely does with Sean McVay. But one of the things McVay did that was different, and I don't know if you noticed this because it's preseason and nobody really pays attention, but Sean McVay, who normally plays nobody in the preseason as far as starters, played starters in the preseason, but Stafford's back was injured and he didn't practice a lot, didn't play at all. And now he's going to play the Texans in week one. And I can guarantee you our old friend DeMeco Ryans is going to throw blitzes and different things at Matthew Stafford to determine how healthy he is. And look, nobody's trying to hurt anybody out there, but I used to do a show with a former defensive lineman when I lived in Detroit. And he said, look, we used to go after quarterbacks and hit quarterbacks and try to hurt quarterbacks, not maliciously to end their career. But his saying was, if the backup quarterback was as good as the starting quarterback, he'd be starting. And their point was to win games. So he was like, look, nobody's going to say this publicly, but he would tell me on the air, we were trying to get the quarterback out of the game. And in LA's case, our old friend Jimmy Garoppolo is the backup to Matthew Stafford. And you know, and I know that Jimmy Garoppolo is not as good as Matthew Stafford. So their season hinges on the health of Matthew Stafford. And look, the Niners season hinges on Brock Purdy and et cetera, as every quarterback. The biggest drop off in all of sports in any position, and it's not even close, is the 1 to the 2 quarterback. That's just what it is. Now, New Orleans, Cleveland, some of these other places, maybe not. But Brock Purdy to Mac Jones, major drop off, and on and on and on and on. So that's just the way that it is. So Stafford to Garoppolo, major drop off. And if that happens at any point during the season, the Rams can go from the best team in the NFC West to the worst team in the NFC West. So, look, I think, to be honest with you, I think the showdown in week one, I agree with Sherman in this way as well. I think the NFC West is going to be Seattle and San Francisco or San Francisco and Seattle. And I think the Rams are going to be in third place. I like them. Sean McVay has made the playoffs in 6 of 8 years. He's won the division in 4 of his 8 years. The Rams are always going to be a team to be reckoned with. They've got a lot of young talent. They've done a nice job. In fact, they've done what the 49ers are trying to do, which is they purged. Aaron Donald retired, and yet they stayed in the race with great drafting, smart moves. They got a great front office with Les Snead, a great head coach in Sean McVay, whatever you think about him. They did that. They did what the 49ers are trying to do. I just look at them and I say, 37-year-old quarterback with an iffy back over 17 games. I just don't know if that's going to be able to hold up. And so I look at Seattle, who people forget won 10 games, who I think is going to have a better defense with Mike McDonald in year number 2. Their question mark is they couldn't run the football last year. They added a first-round guard, and they think that they're going to be able to run the ball because they've got a Kubiak who's determined to run the football. We'll see. And then I look at the 49ers and I say, very much an easy schedule. They're going to struggle defensively, I think, early in the season, but I think they're going to score a lot of points. So week 1 is huge, this game, and we'll get more into it as the week goes on. But I think it's huge because I think these are going to be the top 2 teams in the NFC West. So you can disagree with me on either of those or any of those points. Give me your thoughts. Hit me up on the text line. Hit me up after if you're watching the show, or hit me up right now on X at John Lund Radio. So there you go. And then the final note on the 49ers, and then I'll get to what I almost led with this today, and I never lead with NFL Wire, but I was so pissed about it. We'll get to the NFL Wire and the red zone ruined. But it's Kendrick Bourne. Do I have that? I don't even know if I have that. Kendrick Bourne sent out a note today, and basically he's not going to sign with anybody this week, which basically is a not so veiled attempt to say, I didn't get the contract I was looking for. So he visited the 49ers on Monday. He visited the Commanders on Tuesday, and clearly he didn't get the contract he was looking for. Now what he'll do is he and his agent, they'll sit back and they'll not openly hope for an injury, but essentially what they're hoping for is leverage with somebody in the league, where somebody in week 1 loses a wide receiver and Kendrick Bourne's over here going, I'm open, which means he wants a contract. And so he's just going to sit back and see if somebody has an injury at the position. He would probably be one of the top candidates to fill that position. And so he's going to sit back because neither the Niners or the Commanders came up with the deal that he was probably looking for. Now, Matt Mayoko did report, the great Matt Mayoko did report that the Niners did make an offer to Kendrick Bourne. But as I look at the top 5 receivers, and I played this for you earlier, what Kyle Shanahan said, the 5 receivers that are going to be up on Sunday in Seattle, and he didn't say this, but we can surmise it based on what he said. Obviously, Ricky Pearsall. Jawan Jennings is going to be 2. Sky Moore, because of his potential not only to run some jet sweeps and do certain things and play in the slot, but also special teams, is going to be 3. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to be 4, deep threat. He doesn't play special teams, though, which is a problem long-term. And then 5 will probably be Russell Gage, who Kyle Shanahan trusts. Now, the problem with those wide receivers specifically is you're not going to play Ricky Pearsall on special teams. You're not going to play Jawan Jennings on special teams. Sky Moore will be a returner. You're not going to play Valdez-Scantling on special teams. He doesn't play special teams. And Russell Gage is unlikely to play special teams. So you'd like to have another guy on there. So maybe a Gage doesn't play and he gets replaced by like a Malik Turner because Turner can go down and cover kicks, something like that, or punts. So maybe, but I still think maybe they're going to use Gage just because they're so short at the position. So I would think it would be that 5. So as I look at Kendrick Bourne, I think to myself, he doesn't play special teams either. So is he better than the 5 I just mentioned? Any of those 5? Because he's going to have to learn the offense. And by the time he could be effective, okay, so he's not going to play in week 1. For the sake of conversation, Kendrick Bourne comes back, let's say early next week, right? Players' day off is Tuesday. So Kendrick Bourne, the first time he could practice with the team, Monday's a review and, you're getting treatment and all that. Tuesday is players' day off. So the first practice Kendrick Bourne could have is Wednesday. Well, if he's practicing on Wednesday, remember they're going to New Orleans, so they got to leave on Friday. Late Friday. So they're, and then they're in there Saturday. They do a walkthrough. So it's a short week anyway. You're going across the country. So Kendrick Bourne's really not going to play in week 2. And then, okay, so week 3 he could play. But then after that, DeMarcus Robinson's coming back. And I told you what kind of camp DeMarcus Robinson had. He kicked ass. If you're looking for the second most consistent receiver, after Ricky Pearsall got healthy, Ricky Pearsall was the best receiver in camp. The second best wide receiver, and it's close, DeMarcus Robinson had an amazing camp. So DeMarcus Robinson, when DeMarcus Robinson in game 4 can come back, the 3 wide receivers, no questions asked, unless there's an injury, but no questions asked if everybody's healthy, are going to be Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and DeMarcus Robinson. And that's a nice trio of wide receivers. So those are going to be the 3. So tell me where Kendrick Bourne fits. He's not a special teams guy. He's not, they're going across the country in week 2. Okay. Week 3, Robinson's back the next week. I mean, they like him, but he's not a special teams guy, so I'm not sure that he fits now. I could be wrong, but as I write there, born, no need. I just don't see the fit now with Robinson. Okay, you missed a game. New Orleans is going to be a short week. You're not going to be effective in that game. Week 3, they especially if there's an injury, I guess you're an insurance policy and they could use you. But then if they get through week 3, Robinson's coming back. Robinson had a great camp. He's going to be a starter at that point too. Now you possibly get Watkins back, and now your depth becomes Gage, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, Jordan Watkins. I don't see where Bourne fits. So I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong, but I don't see where he fits now. I would have seen, okay, he comes back and he's with the Niners and he's depth for week 1 at Seattle, especially a couple of weeks ago when you were like, it's Ricky Pearsall and I could see where Bourne fit at that point, but right now I don't see it. So that's it as far as the Niners. Lots of stuff. Kyle talks, Jennings latest. Again, he got a bump in pay today. Wide receivers on Sunday, youth on defense, mirror images, Kubiak ×2, injuries, NFC West predictions, and Bourne no need. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts on the Niners before I get fired up on the NFL wire about Red Zone? Any thoughts, questions, comments, or thoughts? Or forever keep your peace, at least for tonight. Because I'm going to do NFL wire here and we're going to get fired up. And I think you probably will too. But I just want to make sure. Ooh, that's a good question. You know, this is a great discussion. I think Sam is going to be better than Geno. But I don't know that if Seattle can run the football, let me just widen the lens out a little bit on that. Because will the offense be better? And they couldn't run the football. They were one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst team in the league, at running the football last year. And Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator, came from the University of Washington. My friend Ian Furness told us this last night, but I had been told by other people in Seattle that he had kind of been forced on Mike Macdonald. And now Mike Macdonald has some coaches that are really his coaches, including Clint Kubiak, now as his offensive coordinator, who likes a lot better. And they ran the ball really well in the preseason. Does that mean they can run it in the regular season? Not necessarily, but they did. And they tried to fix their offensive line. Again, Gray Zabel out of the North Dakota State University is their new left guard. They're healthy at tackle, including their right tackle, Lucas, who was hurt last year. Cross, their left tackle, is one of the better young tackles in the league at 24. They've got a new starting center this year. So they think they've got a better offensive line. And then Geno Smith last year was just a check down Charlie. And I didn't think he had a really good year. And look, he's been a great storyline since he took over for Russell Wilson, but I didn't think he was great. But then again, look at this team just from a pure talent standpoint on the outside. Say what you want about DK Metcalf. He was a problem. His size and speed were a problem. And then Tyler Lockett just seemed to make catch after catch against the 49ers. He was a major pain in the ass. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba was one of the better slot receivers in the league. And those three guys just fit together. So they were a problem. Now you look at this year and you get Cooper Kupp, but which version are you going to get? He's getting a little bit older. Smith and Jigba is going to play in the slot, sometimes out. But I told you before, because of those splits, they kind of interchange, even though they're on the field at the same time. And then this guy that they got out of Colorado State, like I said, watch 15 on Sunday, Torrey Horton. Those are going to be their three wide receivers. So are they good as what they had last year? At least not on paper, they're not. Now they did add this tight end in Arroyo, and I like their tight ends better. So really what it comes down to is, will Sam be better than Geno? I like Sam better than Geno, to be honest, but I don't know if their offense is going to be as good if they can't run the ball, because their whole thing is, just like the Niners, they want to run the ball. And they're up in Seattle saying, we can run the ball again. We can run the ball again. We'll see. Because over the last number of years, we know this, their offensive line has been one of the worst in the league. They're sitting up there, pounding the table saying, we're better along the offensive line. Well, we'll see. Because on paper, your weapons aren't as good. Now, Ken Walker has had some games against the Seahawks. And one thing about Ken Walker is not only can he run it out of the backfield, he's really good at catching the football. So they've got to watch that. And that's where the safeties for the Niners are going to get challenged. Because, like I said, both these tight ends are pretty good. Barner, a kid out of Michigan, had a nice rookie year last year for them. Arroyo's a problem. Walker coming out of the backfield is a problem. So, and if this offensive line is improved and given this young defense, they've got to keep these young defensive linemen have got to keep the big boys, the offensive line, off of Warner, off of Martin, off of Winters, because in Warner's case, look, he's going to make plays, whatever. But Winters is faster than bigger. Martin is faster, quicker than bigger. They've got to keep these guys off him. Now, the safeties, I really like the safeties for the 49ers as far as going downhill is concerned. So hopefully they can help in the run game as well. So that's a really long answer to your question of will Sam be better than Geno? I just expanded it out to what will the Seahawks offense be? But just in terms of, which quarterback, I mean, Sam Darnold had a hell of a year, and everybody is kind of contributing it or attributing it to, Kevin O'Connell's a great play caller and he played in this perfect offense. He's playing in the same offense that he played in Minnesota. So if he played well in that offense, and a lot of people are like, well, the last couple of games and in the playoff game, I get it. But this is the same Sam Darnold who beat the Niners last year in week 2 in Minnesota. So I think he's pretty decent. I didn't think I'd ever be saying that in his career. So we shall see. All right. That is the story on the 49ers. Let's get to this whole thing about what's going on with the red zone, if you haven't heard about it. Let's hit the wire.
It's time for a look at the NFL stories making headlines. It's the NFL Wire on John Lund Unleashed.
All right, this was the cover of the show today, and so I wrote a piece. I write a national media column for Barrett Media, which comes out every Friday. I've got another one that I just wrote today that's coming out on Friday, and cover the show today for episode 232 was ESPN ruins red zone. And so let me share my screen with you for a second. So here's the piece. If you go right there, Barrett Media, there's my piece that I wrote. That's probably a month ago. Get this out of the way. How ESPN built a case study to become a sports Amazon. That's when they were talking about releasing, which they have released there. So that's August 8th. So almost a month ago, 3 weeks, I guess, when they released their new app and the streaming service and all this different kind of stuff. And they got the Red Zone channel and they got Inside the NBA and all this kind of stuff. And I write this whole piece about it. And as part of this piece, I talk about blah, 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 and they got everything now, and they're pretty much a monopoly or an Amazon. But one of the things I said right there, as you can see, I said, on the flip side, fans are rightly concerned that ESPN won't do the best thing for their two most high-profile new properties, Inside the NBA and NFL Red Zone, and that's nothing. Inside the NBA is perfect. It's not just a show. It's a cultural event. Charles, Kenny, Shaq, and Ernie are lightning in a bottle. It doesn't need a let me tell you something from Stephen A. No room for a dash of perk. Not even a cameo. Start the show, double lock the doors, and watch the zany magic happen. So that's Inside the NBA. That means something because I'm going to play something from Charles here in a second. Then I said, Red Zone is the church of the NFL, and Scott Hansen is the high priest. The iron-bladdered quad-box lord doesn't need the blasting presence of Tank Top King. I can write it, not read it. And his bro crew resist the temptation. ESPN execs, fantasy football freaks, and jittery gamblers will thank you. And speaking of, did I mention ESPN Bet? Yep, they've got sports betting on lockdown too. I did not mention, because I didn't think of it, that they'd actually add commercials. So they're not adding Pat McAfee to it. They're worse. They're doing worse. They're adding commercials. So I was thinking about this today, and I thought to myself, the whole reason I love Red Zone is because I don't want to see commercials. And I've got a clicker, and I've got 3 different TVs, and I got an iPad going, and I got my phone, and I got all these different things. I know how to work Sundays just like you do. Now, most of the time I'm at a game. I'm working a game. I'm doing a game. But even when I do a game, I've got something in my ear. I got iPads. For about 3 years, I would do 49ers pre-half and post. We'd probably end at like 6:50 Pacific, and I'd have to be on the air on ESPN radio for a national recap of Sunday by 7 p.m. So I had 10 minutes where a producer would send me a script of what we were going to talk about and all the sound and all the sponsors and everything. And I'd be like, yep, let's go. And so I would have to, at the same time as I'm watching the Niners game, I'd have another iPad going. And what would I be watching? I'd be watching Red Zone. And I'd be making notes while I'm doing notes on this side on the Niners. I'm doing notes on this side on the NFL, and there's no commercials, and I see every game and every touchdown, and it's amazing. And what I liken it to is, let's say that I have like Hulu or something, or one of those channels, and I pay money so I don't have commercials. I have no issue with it. Like the NFL Red Zone, if you want to have commercials for some people, but I don't want commercials, I'll pay extra for it. I have no issues with it because I don't want to see commercials. That's the magic of it. It's not so much the magic of every touchdown. No, I know for fantasy football freaks, it is that. And I'm in one fantasy football league, not 10, like my son. I'm in one. I had friends since college. It's a pretty high stakes league, and I'm into it. And I may throw down a bet or 2 or 3 on a Sunday, and I'm into it. But I want to see everything. So I don't want it going to, lots of people have thrown these out. All of a sudden there's a touchdown and it's like whopper, 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 whopper. Like there's all these things out there today like that. Like that's what it's going to be. And I don't know what it's going to be like. But at the very worst, you could have like Scott Hansen still on the screen and then like a side, how they do those sidebar commercials, like whatever. So I don't know if they're going to leave Red Zone altogether. But the thing that pisses me off about it, there's a couple of different things, is that as I write in that piece, because I worked for ESPN for 10 years, and as I wrote in that piece, I said, look, it's great that ESPN has everything, and they're going to be your one-stop shop, and they get inside the NBA, and they get Red Zone, and they get all these things. But I said the first thing, because I just know them, and I know how the executives think, is that they're going to screw with it. And the first thing they said when they got Red Zone, the rights to air Red Zone, was we're not going to touch it. Roger Goodell 2 weeks ago said we're not going to touch it. And at least for the first year, you shouldn't. But what they do is they add commercials to it, which takes the magic away from the whole thing. I don't want to see commercials, or I'll just go back to the regular game. So to me, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch because we love it, but no commercials is the thing. I can sit on my couch and not see a commercial. It's amazing. It doesn't get broken up. I get all the football. Can you imagine being in a movie theater and you're watching a movie and it comes to the climax point of the movie and then it breaks to a commercial? And it's like, wait a minute, man, I'm into it. Like I'm completely enthralled in everything. And then he just went to a commercial, and I'm going to miss a touchdown because they're sitting there going, well, it's all the touchdowns. Yeah, but it's on delay. And guess what? I'm staring at my phone and I already know that touchdown happened. The greatness of the Red Zone is I don't know. And you just took it all away. I already know that they scored a touchdown because you missed it. You're going to miss a touchdown. So it's not 7 hours commercial free. And it ruins the whole thing for a lot of people. And I know we'll get used to it. And the fans get kicked in the teeth constantly, and they don't care because that Micah Parsons contract's not going to pay itself now, is it? So you got to have the commercials. And I understand it. And it's going to ruin things. But what starts to happen here is the trickle-down effect. Okay, so you had Red Zone. ESPN gets it. By the way, ESPN got the rights to air the Red Zone on August 5th. We're less than a month, and they fucked it up already. So, and I told you in that piece, which I wrote on August 8th, that they were going to screw it up, and they did. All right, so that's part of it. So let me play the video for you. So here is Scott Hansen on Pat McAfee today talking about them running commercials.
The business folks handle the business.
Of course.
And I have no say over different elements that could or could not be in the show.
Okay.
And so I'll just tell you right now, when you see me come on the air here, we're going to hit the Octo Box. We've got 8 games in the early window, taking you around all the different cities. And then when we get into it, ladies and gentlemen, it's been more than 250 days since the first full NFL Sunday, but we are back. And 7 hours of Red Zone football starts now.
Wow. But he didn't say commercial free. And that's what he said. And he talked about it. And he said, you know what? It's just the way it goes. But here's what happens. All right. We all know this. This is how life works. This isn't just sports. So they take this much. Now we're playing commercials. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing this. And it's gone. That's how things work. When the executives and the suits and the ties and the money gets involved, because the NFL is so fucking greedy that they get this one little sliver that they give us. It's the one piece of heaven that we love, and it works, and we know it, and you give it to us, and we're just like, please don't screw that up. And I said right when they grabbed it a month ago, I said they're going to screw it up. I didn't think they'd screw it up this season. I didn't think they'd screw it up in 28 days. It took less than a month, and they said, we're playing commercials. And nobody stood up and said, look, man, I get it, man. Micah Parsons is now a $47 million edge rusher. He makes more than Patrick Mahomes. but can we touch something else? Or can we make that? I'd be pissed about it, but I'd still succumb to it. Make Red Zone a premium service and give us levels of it. So if you want to go to commercial, kind of like Hulu does, you have different levels of like a Hulu. I use Hulu, so I don't know what the other ones do. I used to use YouTube TV, but I use Hulu. And so there are different levels of Hulu. If you want to deal with commercials, it's fine, but you can pay for no commercials. So I'll pay for, reluctantly, no commercials on Red Zone. I will. So that's another premium thing that you can charge me for, and I'll get, punch me in the face, kick me in the nuts, but I'll pay for it because the sanctity of no commercials I want, because I want to keep it on that channel. And then I got my other things going, and I got my other games going, and I know they're going to go to commercial, but I don't want to go to commercial ever on Red Zone. And we'll all get used to it. But then it's commercials. Then it's this, then it's that, then it's McAfee, then it's this, then it's gone. And they'll see, then they'll see. I mean, it's great and everything else, but they're going to lose the whole thing. So it pisses me off. They had the perfect thing. And then here's the whole thing too. And this is what I wrote about. So I wrote about Red Zone Channel. They were going to screw that up. The other thing that I just read to you as part of my piece a month ago was the other entity that they got was inside the NBA, right? So again, ESPN, their suits, their tie wearers, their guys said, we're not going to touch it. We're not going to touch it. It's perfect. My fear is here comes Screaming A for an appearance. Here comes Kendrick Perkins for an appearance. And I'm like, no. Any drop of those guys screws the whole thing up. So then Charles Barkley was on with Bill Simmons. And this is what Charles Barkley said. And ESPN's going to screw this up too.
This has been one of the worst. TNT just sucks, to be honest with you, Bill.
Yeah.
They made this deal. They haven't told us when we're going to work. They haven't told us how it's going to work, because we've been talking behind the scenes. Like, do we have to, after the game, are we going to get any time? Are they going to say, hey, you guys got to go to Sports Center?
Listen, they've always gone right to Sports Center. That's always how it's worked.
And I've asked that question, because you're right. That's the best part of our show. After the game, we can have conversation and have fun. Are they going to say, you guys got 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15, 20, 30, 45? But are we going to go straight to Sports Center? They haven't given us an answer whatsoever. And TNT, I think they sold the show, and they haven't been non-communicable at all.
What do they care? They got paid.
They got paid.
I'm telling you, two entities that were 100% perfect. And like I said, I'll throw it up one more time, just because I said this was going to happen. Because like I said, I worked for ESPN for 10 years, and I knew this was going to happen. So I wrote this on August 8th on Barrett Media, writing a national column. And like I said, this is all great. And ESPN got this thing and the streaming service, and they got all these things. They got everything. But he said, on the flip side, fans are rightly concerned that ESPN won't do the best thing for their two most high-profile new properties inside the NBA and NFL Red Zone, and that's nothing. And they've already screwed that up. They're going to put commercials on Red Zone, and Charles Barkley is sitting there going, we don't know. And Bill Simmons is right. And I'm not a huge Bill Simmons guy, but Bill Simmons is right. They've always gone to Sports Center. Why would they change? For inside the NBA, they don't care, because what they care about is that they sold the show. They don't care. They don't care that it's a good show. They don't care if it's a funny show. They don't care if they screw it up. They don't care if it's the best pre-half post-game show of all time. They don't care. They don't care. They care about clicks. They care about online. They care about their streaming service. They care about funny little anecdotes that they can put online. They care about Screaming A. Smith, and just little clips. They don't care anymore about the long form and any kind of stuff, because I wrote a piece that's coming out on Friday about how you watch the NFL now. 45% of what you watch is streaming. 45%. The reason why ESPN is going to, not to give you a history lesson here, but the reason why ESPN has got this new streaming service and Fox has this new sports streaming service is because they know that's where everything is going. That's where all the money is. That's where all the revenue is. So for them to then say, okay, let's do a long form program after our NBA, because all they're looking for is a funny anecdote or clip from Charles Barkley or something from Kenny or Shaq falling down, or that's all they want. And then they just want that to go viral. That's it. They need 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever. They don't need a long form program. So they're going to screw that up. They're going to screw up inside the NBA. They're putting commercials on Red Zone 28 days after they acquired the rights to it. Bitching and moaning, I know. but that's what's going to happen. So it took them 28 days to do that. And like I said, everything changes. I get it. The revenue, every slice of extra revenue they can get, they're going to, because Micah Parsons just signed for $47 million and the train ain't slowing down. You know, I mean, if I'm a quarterback right now, I'm going, wait a minute, a guy chasing me down is making 47. I got to make 100. Patrick Mahomes is making 45. You think Patrick Mahomes didn't call his agent and go, hey, the guy chasing me is making more than me. I got the ball in my hands every single play. How many Super Bowls has he won? How many Super Bowls have I won? How much money am I making for the league? Redo my contract. So, look, the money ain't going down. Remember when Nick Bosa was overpaid at $34 million? I mean, it's just, look, the train ain't slowing down, and the NFL is going, oh, my God, how do we make revenue? Well, everybody loves Red Zone. Let's put commercials on that. We can make a killing. And all of us are sitting back going, this sucks. And then one last thing on this, and this just pisses me off. I don't dislike Albert Breer, but let me just give you a little background here. So, and I don't want to sound haughty or anything like that, or smarmy or whatever. But so, as I tell you every day almost, I've been doing this for 30 years. And what happens is you go to these games in every single sport, night after night after night, and you cover them. And the more you do it, the less you get connected to the fan, because you only go to a game one way. You go straight to the press box. You never have to go through traffic. You never have to buy, $20 beers. You never have to. So you kind of lose touch, right? And so I make it a point to constantly go to games where I don't have my pass on or anything like that. I go drink beers. I go tailgate. I go at least to one Niner game a year, to a handful of Giants games a year, to a handful of Warriors games a year. I go as a fan. And the reason why I do that is that I want to stay connected as a fan. I want to stay connected to the prices, what it's like, the whole thing. And a lot of these guys have been doing this so long and never go as a fan that they lose touch with being a fan. And so I like Albert Breer. But when I see shit like this, it just burns me to my core. So I see this after this is all said and done. He says, if you're surprised the NFL is shoehorning commercials into Red Zone, I'm afraid you haven't been paying attention to how they operate. It's just such a smarmy and haughty thing to say of a guy who's fucking completely out of touch and doesn't ever think like a fan anymore. He went to Ohio State. I like the guy. He writes good stuff, but quit trying to be so self-important. You write a column every week. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what it's like to be a fan anymore. Stop it. So they basically are like, hey, you're lucky to be here. Shut up. Take it. Nobody can stand up for the fan. Nothing's going to happen. They're going to put commercials on the Red Zone. They're going to make it worse. Every time they take an inch, we give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. So it's commercials today, then it's something worse and worse. And that's why I'm kind of pissed. That's why I'm pissed about it. It's not that they put commercials on it, which pisses me off. Yeah. But it's just that first it's commercials, then it's this and this and this and this and this. And then it becomes a panel of people talking about every touchdown, and then it's ruined. Because God, if we can get commercials in it, then let's get it sponsored, and every touchdown's brought to you by this, and everything's brought to you by that, and it's just like, okay. And then it's ruined. And it used to be such a great thing. But a network takes it over like ESPN and says, we got to monetize this to its maximum level. That's what they got to do. They can't ever leave it alone. They can't ever give the fans one thing. Like the fans just flock to Red Zone. And they go, oh my God, and everybody loves it. Bettors love it. Fantasy loves it. Average Joe loves it. Everybody. They love watching Red Zone. Now, what's amazing is, and again, I write this piece on Friday, and you'll see this whole thing. Pre-game shows average about 4 million fans. The game of the week, like Fox has a game of the week, it'll average about 26 million fans. And Red Zone, surprisingly enough, will average about 8 million fans, 8 to 10 million fans on a given week. So it's not up like with a big time game, but still it's like double of what a pregame show is. So, I mean, not everybody's watching it, but it's a pretty big number. I mean, again, the NFL is such a mammoth thing that, I mean, if any average show was getting 8 to 10 million viewers a week, they'd just be like, oh my God, the NBA Finals doesn't get that. So, I mean, you're talking about, 8 to 10 million viewers, which is absolutely huge. But in the big scheme of things, a massive game on, TV, just a weekly Fox game of the week is getting like 24, 26 million. So it's not like it's taking over, but it's a damn big number that the Red Zone is getting. And it was perfect. And everybody knew it was perfect. Everybody loved it. Everybody, again, bettors, fantasy, it just fed perfectly into everything. And the first thing that Roger Goodell said 2 weeks ago was, ain't going to change. It's still going to come out of our offices, ain't going to change. And then today, some other media people had the audacity to say, no, this is still run by the NFL. This has nothing to do with ESPN. It has everything to do with ESPN. Everything. I know the executives. I worked there. I sat in the meetings. I know what their objective is. It's clear. It always has been. The revenues, every single sliver of revenue that's on the table, it's like every single crumb. It's like the last donut at an Overeaters Anonymous meeting. There's a crumb of a donut on the table. There's going to be a massive fight, and that table is going to break, and some 300-pound, 500-pound behemoth is going to get that last crumb. That's what the revenue is like in the NFL. We got to get every stinking crumb. But the fans love the red zone. Who cares? We're giving them commercials, and they'll still like it. They'll still watch it. They probably will. But my concern mainly is, and then I'll stop it and shut up, is that this is just the tip of the iceberg on the whole thing. They're going to open it up, and then they're going to go, well, God, they're still watching. Let's do this. They're still watching. Let's do this. Let's still watching. Let's do this. Revenue. They won't leave a crumb on the table. They just won't. No matter how much we like something and how much they know that they're going to screw it up, they just can't help it. And that's ESPN. So don't let anybody tell you that it's any different, because I read some stuff like that today of people like what I just showed you from Albert Breer saying, oh, no, this is the NFL. No, it's not how it is. I know how ESPN works. Every single thing needs to be monetized. That's just how it is. And to a certain extent, I get it, but it doesn't mean I'm not pissed off about it. NFL Red Zone was perfect. You said you weren't going to touch it. In 28 days, you ruined it. And I shudder to think what they're going to do inside the NBA. Because, again, I wrote it in that piece. I shudder to think what they're going to do with inside the NBA, because there's Charles Barkley going, I haven't heard a thing. Let's see, NBA starts middle of October. So we're what, 6 weeks away from that? And the biggest star on the show is going, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if we're going straight to SportsCenter. Don't you think maybe they would have said, hey, man, you're good. You're going to be able to, you're going to have that forum. You're going to be able to talk as long as you want. You guys are going to have fun. You're not going to be under fire. It's not going to be 5 minutes until we got to get to Scott Van Pelt. Who would I rather hear from? Scott Van Pelt and Bad Beats, which isn't bad, or would I rather hear Inside the NBA and Shaq and Charles and that great show? Are they going to ruin that? Really? I mean, I'm just holding out hope that they won't, but it's like, really? It's one of those things where, like, but you don't want to know. Anyway, I'm done. Yeah, ESPN did kill Red Zone, but whatever. I'm done. I'm finished. That's it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Just piss me off. By the way, I already said this, but there you go. Let's put ourselves in a better mood. Eagles, Cowboys, Chargers, Chiefs, college football slate, full week, Bears, Vikings. Let's concentrate on some positive stuff. Let's see, what else do we have? Any questions, comments, thoughts before we get to the sweet, clean, family-friendly Caboose Pistol? And that will put us in a better mood. I'm not pissed. I guess I'm just, you know what it's like? You know when you talk to your parents and they're disappointed? I'm just disappointed because ESPN said that when they got it, even though I knew because I worked for them for so many years, I knew what they were going to do. But I was just like, they said they weren't going to screw it up. And commercials is the worst thing that you could do to it, because you sat on your couch and you're like, I don't have to watch a commercial for 7 freaking hours. I don't have to hear about the Whopper. I don't have to hear about ED treatments. I don't have to hear about, whatever it is, a Whopper, a Big Mac, an ED treatment, a whatever. I don't have to see Peyton Manning's face. I don't have to see anything. Like, it's just going to be football. Scott Hansen. Pew, 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 pew. Boom, 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 boom. Just one after the other. Just, that's it. I don't have to get up. I don't have to find the remote. I don't know where it is. It could be under the couch. The dog could have eaten it. I have no idea. But I don't have to move, because the games come on West Coast if you're watching from somewhere else. So at like 9:45 or maybe like 9:30, you make yourself a little coffee, hit some Bloody Mary, make a little breakfast, whatever the case may be. You get into your spot, put on the TV, you got Red Zone. Maybe you got an iPad working a game. Depending on when the Niners or your favorite team plays, you got that over here. But, or maybe your favorite team you got on the big TV probably. Then you got the red zone on an iPad or something. And maybe you got your fantasy team over here and you got all that kind of stuff. Like, you got it. It's wired. And you can look at, like, when they go to commercial on a game, you look at red zone. It's always there. It's Mr. Reliable. It's always on something. Even if they're not in the red zone. It's on something. It's a quad box or something. And the first time you miss a touchdown and you look on your phone and you already got it, and then they try to play it like it's live, you're going, pfft. Anyway, maybe I'm making too big of a deal of it. Maybe it'll be fine. But as of right now, it's new and it pisses me off. Man, we'll see. I would like I said, I know this won't be popular, but I would pay for a kind of, like I said, like Hulu, where I would say, I'll go no commercial. I'll pay extra. I don't know how much extra I'd pay, $20. I'll pay an extra $20 a month. Just give me no commercials. Like, if you want to have a commercial version of it, great. You want to give me, I'd have a limit on that. But you want to give me a commercial free version of it, that's what I want to do. Or if you run that side by side, you want to run a commercial over here and you want to split the box. You're already doing quad boxes anyway. So if you want to split the box and have some dumb ad over here, that's fine. But don't leave. You can't leave. If I find out they're leaving, they're completely leaving, yeah, I'm fine with McAfee, but cut the shit. You know what I mean? This stuff, all these, that's what I'm talking about. Like McAfee, this has changed so much, and I don't mean to be get off my lawn guy, but I don't know when it switched. But like I showed you the Albert Breer thing before. When did everybody start kissing everybody's ass? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're surprised that the NFL is shoehorning commercials, I'm afraid you haven't been paying attention. Shut up, you haughty piece of shit. Like, quit defending the NFL. Quit defending the Shield. They don't need it. But, Albert Breer's like, well, I need to have, access to all the players. So let me defend the NFL. Shut up. When are people going to say something? Nobody defends the fan ever. It's like, I knew it was coming. It's like, shut up. And I like McAfee, man. And he's made his living off the NFL. He's making his post-career living off the NFL. So what does he do? He defends the NFL. Defends the NFL. Breer defends the NFL. Everybody defends the NFL. And then you got guys, who write for the local team or cover the local team, and they defend the local team. Like, that's what media's turned into. I need access to the players, so I got to defend the team. I can't criticize anybody, can't criticize. And then what it turns into is somebody who tries to tell the truth like I do and not blow smoke up your ass every night. Then it's like, what an ass that guy is, what a jerk that guy is. And it's like, no, it's just the truth. Sorry, because everybody gets so conditioned to, well, gee, the NFL had to do that because they had to pay Micah Parsons and they have to pay all these guys, and the guys are the bad guys. They're not the bad guys. They've got so much revenue coming out of their ears, it's ridiculous. If Micah Parsons gets $47 million to rush the quarterback, then the owner's making 100 times that. And they don't want to, like I said, it's a Weight Watchers meeting with the last crumb on the table. And everybody's diving on the table to get it. Like, they don't care. They want every single piece of revenue they can. But the red zone's perfect. Do not care. Revenue? Did you say revenue? We're leaving a penny on the table? The hell with that. Now, again, to be honest and to be fair, that's America. That's just the way things work. I get it. But every once in a while, you would just love it for somebody to go, hey, man, can I just raise my hand back here in the back? The red zone's pretty damn good as it is. Can we just throw the fans a morsel of bone, something, without, screwing everything up? Nah. I'll get used to it. I'll get over it. But it just didn't used to be that way. I'm just saying that there, guys used to write, guys used to say, guys just, they would just, and I'm talking about credible guys. I'm not talking about like a Screaming A or something who just makes stuff up to be an antagonist day after day after day. I'm talking about somebody with credibility who would call the NFL out and say, you know what, this isn't right or whatever. And now everybody wants to keep their position and it's almost like politics. They want to keep climbing the ladder within the great shield of the NFL. And if you don't agree, or don't play along with everything that they do or say, and you become the anti, then the NFL is like, you stop climbing the ladder. And there's not a lot of those guys left out there. Like, this is not, because, this is clearly not a good thing, but all the guys that make their living off the NFL are like, not so bad. All they're doing is adding commercials. It's like, all right, I'm done. Like, I've said that 8 times. Or 18 times I probably said that. Oh, man. All right. Sorry. Joy said she's glad she's wearing earbuds because her kids would probably be offended by my choice of language tonight. So that's it. That's all I'm saying. All right. Great to see everybody tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll do the Sweet Clean family-friendly caboose pistol to lighten things up momentarily. But I appreciate you being in attendance tonight. We've had a great time tonight. We did a ton of stuff on the Niners. If you missed anything, just go to the start of the show, or I will post chapters a little bit later on so that you can check everything out. But make sure you're subscribed to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Also, YouTube, Bay Area Sports Collective. And if you're watching on X tonight, that is outstanding, at John Lund Radio. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And if you would come on over and subscribe to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, we are here generally 6 days a week. 5 of those are at night, 7 p.m. Pacific time. We're here Saturday mornings as well, and when news breaks, specifically on the NFL and the 49ers. But we do a bunch of stuff on the NFL, and it is week 1, so things are just going to get better and better as the week progresses. But what we also do is we finish every single show, regardless, with the Sweet Clean family-friendly caboose pistol, which we have been doing both on the radio and here on the show for years and years.
John Lund Unleashed presents the caboose pistol.
Wedged in the crack of her buttocks.
Somehow, someway, Lundo thinks this is the best way to leave a final impression on you for the day.
The old caboose pistol, everybody has one.
Did you say caboose pistol?
I know some women who could hide a machine gun in there.
Yeah.
Leave me out of this, you weirdo. Here's John.
All right, let's lighten things up. I'm in a much better mood already hearing the music. 2 quick things. Let's see, where are we going to start? We'll start with hotboxing because it says there hotboxing airline. So let's just do it in the order I have it there in the bottom of the chalkboard in green. Look, I don't claim to be the best father. I think I've done a pretty decent job. But it says right there, New York couple caught hotboxing car with 2-year-old in the backseat outside Miami Beach Hotel. And I've been in Miami Beach as well. I know you can do some weird things. You overdrink, you get crazy. You can do some things that probably aren't the greatest. I told some Miami Beach stories. I think it was actually last night. But if you aren't familiar with hotboxing, you probably are, but I'll explain it to some of the people who, maybe the one person who may not know, but most people know. As you can see the smoke there in the car, hotboxing is when you're smoking weed. It could be in any which way, bong, joint, whatever the case may be. You roll up all the windows so you can get maximum effect. So you're smoking in the car, but you're getting all the smoke effect as well, and that is hotboxing. The best example I can give you, and this is going back a ways, so I don't want to be aging myself, but I will be, if you remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and Jeff Spicoli, Sean Penn, and who was the other guy in there? Eric Stoltz, redhead, and there was one other guy in there. I don't think he was as popular of an actor, but anyway, they come before school, which I was not a big smoke weed guy before school, but they come falling out of the VW van. The doors open and they were hotboxing in there, and then the smoke comes billowing out of the VW van, and then they grab their backpacks and they walk into school. So anyway, hotboxing is when you fill the car, van, truck, whatever, up with smoke as you're smoking the weed with whatever contraption you are using. The problem here is that they had a 2-year-old in the back seat. And even that you may think that I am morally corrupt, even I would not hotbox in a car with a 2-year-old in the back seat. What the hell are you thinking, you two? And the woman with the blue hair there. Again, I'm not going to stereotype, but yeah. Hotboxing in a car with a 2-year-old. I don't know what the punishment for something like that is, but I mean, I got to think maybe 50 years. No, okay. It's not going to be 50 years, but my God, that's got to be a while. And, my wife and I were talking about this the other day. there's a lot of things like, for example, we're in the process of a major purchase right now. And the paperwork that you have to do for like a major purchase in our country, it's like almost your firstborn and this and that. And it goes back to many, many years. And you got to do this and you got to do that. And then the next day you think you're done. And then you got to do this and you got to do that. Oh, you got to send them this and you got to send them that. But you can have a child in our country and for nothing. Like there's no background check. There's no this, there's no that. Like at some point, wouldn't you be in favor of like, hey, you know what? You got to do some kind of a background check. You got to do this. You got to do that. You can't just go willy nilly, flipping your seat around and you can just have a child because you're hotboxing with a 2-year-old in the back of a car. Shouldn't there be something? I mean, it's, if you don't have good credit, you can't have a car. If you can't jump through all the hoops, you can't buy a house. I mean, nowadays, if you got bad credit, a certain job, they do background checks on a job. I mean, you can't get a certain job without a background check. You can't get a car. You can't get a house with bad credit, but you can have a flock of kids. You can have 50 of them. Nobody cares. I mean, what are you doing? My God, sorry. Back on a rant, but my God, man, really? Hotboxing a car with a 2-year-old in the back? What did you do? Just forget? Oh, damn. Jimmy's in the back. What were we thinking? Now, maybe I don't know. Maybe they were stoned before they got in the car and they forgot about the 2-year-old. My Lord. You're hotboxing in a car. Now, again, you're in Miami Beach. You probably were, cocktailing or whatever, but Lord. So that's number one. That's your sweet thing family friendly Caboose Pistol, number one. And then number two, this one's a little funnier. See the guy's hairline there? It's gone. Like it's ozone layer gone. And it says, teacher arrested for spending school credit card on hairline repair cream. Bro, I got news for you, man. That hairline, it's not coming back. And I know, like, you get these, you see online, especially nowadays, where, weight loss things, hairline things, returning of hair, wrinkle creams. Like we've never been more bombarded than we are now with basically snake oils online. And sometimes it is difficult to know what is legit and what is not. And I've kind of got a philosophy now where I don't trust anything. Like I'll give you a great example. Somebody called me this morning, literally right at 9:00 in the morning as I'm having my coffee, which makes me cranky anyway. And so I had like my first sip of coffee. I get a call on my cell phone and somebody calls me from some doctor or something like that. And they said right away, not even introducing themselves. Hi, we need you to pay this medical bill and I need your credit card. And I'm like, whoa. Like, first of all, I'm not comfortable just giving anybody my credit card over the line because there's so many scams out there nowadays. And it was like, tell you what, you give me a website, you tell me where I'm going to go here and what I should be doing. And you show me a bill because she's like, it's $74. And I'm like, it sounds like you just pulled that out of the air. So I'm like, tell me the website, show me the bill. When did I have this doctor appointment? Like, and she was just like, like she didn't know any answers. And so it was a pure scam. I'm like, bye, get out of here. And so, yeah, it's harder than ever. And even when you get like emails and they might put like a certain logo on there and it might look legit and everything like that. But I'm just telling you, like, you use the school credit card on hairline repair cream. And I get it, man. As a man, it's like one of the things that's maybe most devastating is like you're losing your hair. And, who knows? I don't know what he would look like bald. I mean, maybe you look like Michael Jordan. You just walk around, you look good. Maybe you look good bald, but your hairline's not coming back. I mean, I don't know what kind of cream this hairline cream was specifically said it was going to do. I mean, I think if you're barely losing your hair, maybe, but I mean, that thing's gone. I mean, I'm just here to tell you that thing's gone and that's not going to help you. Just here to tell you the truth. Anyway, there you go. There's a couple of sweet, clean, family-friendly Caboose pistols. The hotboxing ones got me. Just anybody can have a kid. Nothing. You can just have a kid. No credit checks. No nothing. No nothing. Don't even have to go in. So what are you going to do with this kid? They should have at least a questionnaire. If you're in Miami Beach and you were hotboxing in a car, would it be okay if you had a 2-year-old in the back while you were hotboxing? Yes. Sorry, no kid. Like, shouldn't there be like 100, a questionnaire, like 100 questionnaire, and it could be multiple choice. And it could be those ones that really can trick you. What is not the right answer? Trip them up or something like that. Like, and then if you can't get like, I don't know. I mean, to have a kid, you should probably get 90% on that test, shouldn't you? Like the hot boxing one, you should definitely be able to get like, you're in Miami Beach, you've been partying, and you feel like you need to, get in the back of the van and hotbox, but there's a 2-year-old in there. What should you not do? You shouldn't hotbox. Wouldn't be that hard of a question, but clearly those people would have failed it. And automatically they just shouldn't be able to have a kid. Like there should be some sort of a chip inserted in you or whatever the case may be. I mean, we've got the technology. Be like, sorry, we're not removing the chip. You can't have a kid. Now, if you could, get 90% on that and get a basic question like you shouldn't hotbox with a 2-year-old in the car, then maybe we could have you have a kid. But nah, don't think so. LeBron James got his hair back. He probably didn't use a cream though. I got a feeling he had one of those like robo transplants. Could you see him like in a chair and LeBron's got the robo transplant going on? Something like that. Yeah, see, that's what I'm at, man. You're at that point. It's like shave your head. You know what I mean? I mean, I'd like to keep my hair, even though that, I'm follically challenged to a certain point. I mean, it's not terrible hair. I'm going to try to keep it as long as I can. But man, if it's getting to a certain point, I'm not online trying to get a, miracle hair cream repair. Like I know, but it's not happening. It's not going to happen, man. I know that. Oh, now that's a real viewer right there. I got to get hot nuts, right? I got to get hot nuts. In fact, we're going to do that tomorrow night. Well, I think we'll be watching Philly tomorrow night, right? At this time? That game will be over, right? What do we got? 9:02? My God, we've been on. How long have we been on? Almost 2 hours? I got to go. I got things to do. Thank goodness. Went long on the Niners, went on a stupid rant about red zone being ruined by those commercials. My goodness, man. What am I doing here? Let's see here. Any more questions, comments, thoughts? I got to get some more upbeat caboose pistols, man. Can't have hotbox and 2-year-olds in the show. That gets me too angry, right? We gotta have something more fun. I promise tomorrow we'll do a better job. That's what I always say, though. Do a better job tomorrow. Yeah, hot nuts is definitely throwback. I'll get some hot nuts tomorrow because that always, if we do that to end the show every night, people will be in a great mood. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to put everybody in a good mood, not a bad mood. I don't want to do rants and stuff like that. I want to have fun. I want to laugh. All right, what else do we have? I think that's good for tonight, right? We almost did 2 hours. We're in a good mood. Thanks for holding out and hanging out, I should say, so long tonight. So episode 232, Kyle Talks, Jennings' latest. Again, he got a bump in pay tonight. Wide receivers on Sunday, youth on defense, Kyle talked about. Mirror images, double Kubiaks. Injuries, that's going to be a Wednesday staple because that's when they bring them out during the season. NFC West predictions. Kurt Warner was the only one saying Niners, Richard Sherman's wishy-washy, NFL Wire, red zone ruined by commercials, but I told you so. Football Thursday, Friday, NFL starts tomorrow night, and the hot box and hairlines for the Sweet Clean family-friendly caboose pistol. Thanks to Fuji and to Tommy tonight for supers. Really appreciate it. Make sure before you get out of here tonight that you hit us with a like. Also, please subscribe to the channel, John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Thank you for watching on X tonight at John Lund Radio. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, put them right underneath the show here or on X at John Lund Radio. Everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight and have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.